at one point I started to make peace with my mother, who was blonde. And after I started making peace with my mother, I noticed that I found women with blonde hair attractive. Right? So you see, I had a hard time with my mother when I was a kid, right? And so all of that got recorded, you know, in terms of resisting her, rejecting her, right? So it got to the point that whenever I looked at a blonde woman, I would have this aversion, you know? It's like, I don't want to get too close to that, right? Because I'm going to get hurt again, right? So if you understand how that works, it's an explanation for how when we're traumatized or how when we have negative experiences, right, that they keep coming back and haunting us, keep coming back and returning, and it can get to the point where if that starts to run your life, right, and you have enough of that going on, you can't leave the house. It'll be too upsetting. Or if anybody, you know, it's like one of the ways Michael Singer talks about this is he says there's the old metaphor that's used in spiritual teachings where they say, you know, if you see a piece of rope lying on the ground, right, and you think it's a snake, right, but it's not a snake. You misinterpret what it is, right, and so you feel afraid about it, right, and then what happens is anytime in the future, anything that appears in your world that appears close enough to that, you get upset and you get afraid and you want to run away. And you don't know why, right? This is where a lot of times when people come to psychotherapy, that's what's going on. They're having reactions that are irrational, right? Or they're suffering from trauma that makes them avoid certain places and certain people, right? Because they start getting upset or they start feeling panicky or they get depressed, right? So this is a very interesting way of understanding the way the mind works and how the way the mind works causes behavior to be dysfunctional and causes a lot of suffering for people. So if you really expand this and start to look at it, it starts to show you what's going on in your mind that has you react the way you do to people, places, and things, and has you have upsetting reactions and upsetting behaviors or avoiding behaviors or fight or flight behaviors in situations where there's no threat to you. Okay? About it. How do you live that way? You know? How do you live in such a way where you can start to pay attention and be aware of what's going on in the nervous system, right? What's going on in the mind, with the voice in your head, what's going on with your emotions, what's going on in the body, so that by paying attention that way, and using the benefit of meditation, because one of the big benefits of meditation is we're practicing getting the body to relax and the mind to calm down, right? So with this calmer mind and this more relaxed body and this ability to pay attention more consistently, we can start noticing when something happens that sets off a reaction. Something happens, you can feel it in your body. You know what I mean? If you practice this, you can drive your car and you can feel it in your body when something happens in traffic, right? You can feel it in your body when you have this upset and you start reacting to what's going on around you in traffic as if the other people care about what you're reacting to, you know? And so by learning to pay attention this way and practicing this way of paying attention, you can start to apply learning how to accept what's happening. And the way Michael Singer talks about it, I think, is useful because he says, look, if you listen to what I'm saying, you might say, oh yeah, that sounds easy when you say it, but it ain't so easy to do it, right? That's true, that's true. But in the same way, it would be easy for me to say to you, wouldn't it be wonderful if you could learn how to play the piano and play classical music on the piano? Wouldn't you be able to enjoy that? You could say the same thing. Well, that's easy to talk about, but it's not so easy to do, right? Well, then how do you do it if you want to do it? You patiently go through the process of learning how to do it one step at a time. You practice how to do it one step at a time. You repeat the practice over and over again until you get to a point where you can play music. Same exact thing here, and same exact thing in meditation. As you practice meditation, those of you who have established a practice, I'm sure have noticed that the practice doesn't stay the same. As you continue to do it, it gets easier. New things happen, new things open up that were unexpected before. And the time will actually come when the way you're being when you're meditating, which is practicing letting everything be as it is, isn't it, right? The way you're being in meditation starts to be available to you in your life. That's the payoff. That's the product of the practice of meditation, that in your life when things happen, you can allow what's happening to happen. You can allow yourself not to resist it. Now, one of the things about this practice of acceptance, right, is we're not saying that in order to accept what's happening, you have to change the thoughts you're having, or you have to change the feelings you're having. Because remember, we don't have anything to say about that, do we? No. Thoughts happen in your mind, that's your conditioning running, right? And your emotions operate consistent with that mind-body, right? Your body gets upset, the mind plays upsetting thoughts, and the emotions play upsetting emotions, right? So we're not saying acceptance is a matter of changing the way you think or changing how you feel or changing what happens in your body. No. Acceptance happens when you learn to accept that too. So when you get triggered, right, if you're practicing this, right, you're paying attention in such a way where you're aware of what's happening, you're aware of the thoughts, you're aware of the feelings, you're aware of the physical sensations, right? You're not resisting or rejecting any of that. You're not resisting or rejecting any of that. And when you don't resist or reject any of that, what's happening, which is coming in through the senses, right? What's happening comes in and goes through. As you walk around in the world, right? As you walk around in the world, a lot of what's going on around you goes right through. The experience of it goes right through. There's no attention gets drawn to it or anything. Most of what's going on around you goes right through. But when you learn to pay attention, you notice that which doesn't go right through, that which gets stuck, it's because it's hitting a pattern that you have in your brain. And that pattern that you have in your brain is saying no to that, or this is dangerous to that. And it's creating a reaction, right? And so now you're paying attention to that, right? Of all the things going on around you, what you're paying attention to at any point in time is either what you want or what you're afraid of. That's the mind, that's the conditioning running, right? Now, in order to practice acceptance, why do we want to practice acceptance? We want to practice acceptance because whenever we block the energy, whenever we block the experience of what's happening, we get stuck with it and it starts to just keep replaying, yeah? Something that happens that upsets you, you ever notice how you keep replaying it? It keeps recycling, right? And as it's recycling, it's deepening the impression in your brain. So now, when something similar to that comes up, it comes up even stronger than it did before. And it can continue to go like that. So what we're talking now is to reverse that. To reverse that. By accepting the thoughts, feelings, and sensations and the situation as it exists, right? That energy, instead of increasing, decreases. Decreases. And as it decreases, all the things that happen around you in the world that you would reject or resist, or you would chase, the other side of the same coin, you would chase, right? Start to diminish in such a way where they stop blocking the natural flow of energy in your body. You've heard, some of you probably heard of Kundalini Yoga. Ever heard of Kundalini Yoga? It's a form of yoga in which they say that there is a powerful form of energy that resides at the base of the spine, and that through the practice of Kundalini Yoga, right, that you are dissolving the barriers that block that energy from moving. The chakras, right? The chakras. And Sakti is the word for the energy, or you could call it Chi, if you're familiar with Chi, same thing, the vital life force, right? That as these energies dissolve that are the blockage, and a lot of the blockage is right here in the gut, right? Because when you get upset, the gut tightens up, right? So right here you have a ball of blockage holding the energy down, right? So through practicing acceptance, what are we doing? We're releasing these blocks. Because when you don't resist and you don't reject and you don't chase, these blocks start to dissolve. But the key to them dissolving is you don't resist the blocks themselves. That's the part that a lot of people don't understand. They think you have to change what you think, have to change how you feel. No, you can't do that. But you can be present to it in a way where it just dissolves because you're not feeding it. You're not getting involved with it. You're staying seated in the ground of being, meaning that you're residing in your awareness instead of going out and getting involved in these things. You're residing in your awareness. And you're practicing acceptance, right? And so by doing this over and over again, you're training yourself to notice when things come up that are going to cause blockage. Things come up that are going to cause resistance, that are going to cause rejection. And you're paying attention in such a way when they come up, you let all that run, okay? You let all that run, but there's no resistance, so it starts to diminish in terms of the solidity of it, the substance of it starts to dissolve. And as that happens, you get more energy because the blockages are released and dissolved, and the energy starts to flow more freely. And as that happens, and as this energy flows from the base of the spine up to the brain, it causes this feeling of lightness and relief and happiness and elation, right? Because now instead of resisting life, you're moving with life. You know, you and life are the same thing. You become the same thing, right? This is the fulfillment of the possibility that we have as human beings, you know, to come out of the darkness, you know, to come out of the contraction, to be able to relax. That's one of the things that in some of the highest teachings in spiritual teachings have to do with practicing relaxation, you know, practicing being open and relaxed, practicing allowing the mind to calm down so that all of this agitation and activity, you know, starts to dissolve and the mind can become a clear and open space, right, without resistance to anything. And as that happens, you see things more clearly. You don't see distortion. You don't see people that are mean and hateful. You see other human beings that are conditioned, just like you are, right? You see things as they are, and so you're no longer caught up in mechanically and automatically reacting to everything, and now you're free to flow with life and to flow with the way things are, and life starts to be an enjoyable experience. Instead of a hell realm, it starts to be, you could say that life is a hell realm when you're stuck in your head, when you're stuck in your conditioning. Don't forget, the basic nature of our conditioning is to learn, we were talking about this earlier, to learn that you're separate from the world and you're separate from everybody else. And if that's the case, you have to be afraid. You have to feel threatened all the time. You have to keep protecting yourself. Now, we know from the spiritual teachings that's actually not true. You're not separate, and there's nothing that you have to protect, that you're actually safe all the time. Nothing can ever happen to who you really are. It's who you think you are that's afraid that things are going to happen to it. It says, as people say, I have a soul. No, you don't have a soul, you are a soul, right? You know, you don't have awareness, you are awareness, right? And so these teachings and these practices are about practicing what it would be like to live like that. And those practices are very specific in terms of how to do this and how to keep doing it repeatedly over time so it becomes second nature. And then you experience the freedom that's available, you experience being more happy, you experience having more energy, and you experience being able to accept, naturally accept and be with everything that comes along with being in a human life, including old age, sickness, and death, and all the unpredictables, right? If you can be a space for all that, if you can be present to that in a relaxed way with a calm mind, right? What can go wrong? You know, it's just like you said in the last class. You said, oh, do you mean that if you were experiencing your true nature all the time, you would never resist anything? And I said, that's right, you would never resist anything. But we're not experiencing our true nature all the time, at least not yet, and I doubt most people will, 100%. Michael Singer says that's not true for him. I know it's not true for me, okay? So in the meantime, let's practice as a person being able to be in acceptance with life. By using our ability to pay attention and by using our ability to use a calmer mind and a relaxed body, to be present to life as life is appearing to us, and then begin to notice the difference that makes, like a practice.
Does what you just said apply to phobias, or is it
That's what a phobia is. That's what a
Right.
phobia is.
But I mean, like, a person that has a phobia against dogs?
Yes, that's
Yes.
what a phobia is. That's what a phobia is. If you have a phobia against dogs, something happened in your life
Right, it
that
did.
scared you.
Right.
It might have not even been a dog.
It was a dog.
Okay, it could have been a dog, but but once it's a dog, right, and you have that reaction to it, right, then that reaction. So now you can't experience dogs. You can only experience your fear of dogs. You see how that takes you out of life, right?
Right.
So then how do you treat that? How do we treat that in psychotherapy? How do we treat people that have phobias?
I never had therapy for it.
All right, well, I'll tell you, so you don't have to pay for it. Right?
That's the problem.
One of the ways that we treat people who have phobias is called exposure therapy, right? And how do we do that? First of all, we start training you to relax, right, before we expose you to anything, right, so that you are able to maintain a relaxed state, okay? And then we start taking you closer to dogs. And as you start to react, we say, okay, breathe and relax the system, relax your nervous system, right? And accept the thoughts and the feelings and the sensations that you're experiencing. Yeah, just be with that and be with what's happening with the dog, right? And as you gradually do that and get more exposed to the dog, right, and maintain the relaxed state, eventually it will get to the point where it dissolves, and then you're not afraid of dogs. That is what a phobia is. What we're talking about here is what a phobia is.
Well, I'm certainly willing to try it.
Well, yeah, you can do it not just with dogs, but see, that's what I'm saying. So if you start to pay attention to anything that you're reacting to like that you tend to avoid, right? Or anything that you're reacting to that you tend to chase, right? Because in both cases, it doesn't work, right? That if you start paying attention to that and you start practicing accepting what's happening in terms of your thoughts and your feelings and your sensations, right? You will gradually start to feel more relaxed and less compulsive about chasing things and less compulsive about running away from things until you can be with whatever is happening just the way it is. And you'll have a much more enjoyable life, right?
Right, because right now, as soon as I see a dog, I get scared.
Yeah.
I don't think,
Yeah.
of,
Yeah, but
of what's happening.
see, what we're talking about here, as soon as you see a dog, your nervous system reacts.
Yes.
And you identify with your nervous system, so you say, I get scared. So one of the things we're talking about here is you're not your nervous system, you're the awareness of your nervous system. So you have to understand that. That's part of what Michael Singer's talking about, is understanding who you are is an important part of this practice. Otherwise, it won't work because you are your nervous system. Well, that's just not true. You're not your nervous system, right? So that's part of the understanding necessary to do the practice of acceptance.
Okay.
Okay, so bring your dog next time.